The restaurant shimmered with an expensive calm, the kind that made even breathing feel controlled. Crystal chandeliers hung like frozen stars above polished marble floors, their light reflecting off gold-rimmed plates and perfectly folded white napkins. Soft classical music floated through the air, carefully chosen to suggest elegance without demanding attention. Conversations were low and deliberate, every laugh measured, every word weighed for value. At the center of the room sat Victor Harrington. He wore a tailored charcoal suit that cost more than most people's monthly salaries, his silver watch catching the light every time he lifted his hand. His presence drew subtle glances from across the room, recognition, respect, ambition. Chairs around him filled quickly with men who smelled of cologne and confidence, investors and partners who knew his name meant power. On either side of Victor sat his twin daughters. Lily and Rose were 6 years old, small in their oversized velvet chairs, their feet dangling above the floor. Their dark blonde curls were pinned back neatly, identical dresses pressed to perfection. To anyone who didn't know them, they looked like porcelain dolls placed carefully for display. But the girls were not ornaments. They were watching everything. Lily's eyes moved constantly, following lips, expressions, hands. Rose leaned slightly toward her sister, their shoulders touching, a silent comfort they had learned early. The room buzzed with sound, forks clinking, glasses chiming, voices overlapping, but none of it reached them. Silence was not emptiness to them, it was simply the way the world existed. Victor spoke animatedly about acquisitions and overseas expansion, his voice rising with enthusiasm as one investor laughed loudly at something barely amusing. His attention never drifted to the girls. It wasn't neglect born of cruelty, just habit. He loved them deeply, but love didn't always translate into presence. A waiter arrived with bread and set the basket down between the twins without making eye contact. Lily looked up at him hopefully, lips parting as if to speak, then remembered. The man had already turned away. Rose gently tapped the table, then signed to Lily beneath its edge, her fingers careful and practiced. Are they going to talk to us today? Lily shrugged slightly, her gaze lowering. Maybe later. A woman at a nearby table glanced over, her eyes lingering on the twins for just a second too long. She leaned toward her companion and whispered something behind her hand. Lily noticed the movement, the way the woman's lips formed the word, shame. Lily didn't need sound to understand that tone. Rose's fingers tightened around her napkin. The dessert cart rolled past, glass domes covering slices of cake-like treasures. Rose's eyes widened. She tugged lightly at Victor's sleeve, pointing toward it. Victor nodded absently without looking, still deep in conversation. Yes, we'll discuss that after the quarter closes, he said, waving his hand. Rose's hand fell back to her lap. The girls ate quietly. They always did. They were used to being polite, invisible, well-behaved. Their teachers called them sweet. Strangers called them quiet angels. No one asked what they thought. At the edge of the room, Anna stood near the service station, balancing a tray against her hip. She had been a waitress here for almost a year, long enough to know the rules. Don't interrupt powerful tables, don't linger, don't draw attention. But she couldn't stop watching the twins. She noticed how they didn't react when a glass shattered in the kitchen. How their eyes stayed locked on people's mouths. How their hands moved just barely under the table, hidden conversations unfolding in the open. Anna's chest tightened. She remembered sitting at her family's kitchen table years ago, her little brother Matteo banging his spoon happily while the rest of the world assumed he was broken. She remembered how quickly people looked away when communication wasn't easy. She remembered learning sign language before she could properly read, because it was the only way Matteo could tell her when he was scared, or excited, or hurt. The manager brushed past her. Table 12 needs refills, he said briskly. Anna nodded, but her eyes went back to Victor's table. Lily picked at her food now, her shoulders slightly hunched. Rose leaned closer and signed something small and slow. Let's pretend we're somewhere else. Lily managed a smile and nodded. She signed back. At home. With the dog. Their smiles were fragile, trying to hold together. Another server approached the table, placing a fresh glass of wine near Victor's hand. He smiled broadly at the billionaire. Anything else for you, sir? Victor shook his head. No, we're fine. The server turned to leave. He never looked at the girls. Something inside Anna snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but firmly. A quiet decision settled in her chest. She adjusted her apron, steadied her breathing, and picked up a tray with 3 glasses of water she didn't need to deliver. As she walked across the room, her footsteps felt heavier than usual. She could feel eyes on her. Servers weren't supposed to linger at that table unless summoned. Her manager frowned slightly from across the floor. Anna stopped beside the twins. She didn't speak. Instead, she set the glasses down gently, then bent slightly so she was at their eye level. She smiled, not the polite customer service smile, but a warm, real one. Lily looked up first, cautious, curious. Then Anna raised her hands. Hello. The motion was simple, clear. The effect was instant. Lily's eyes widened. Rose's breath caught in her chest. For a fraction of a second, they just stared, as if afraid this might disappear if they blinked. Anna held the smile, steady and patient. The twins straightened in their seats. The silence around the table suddenly felt different, not empty, not heavy, but full of something waiting to happen. Anna's hands remained lifted, open and relaxed, giving the twins time to trust what they were seeing. In a world that so often rushed past them, patience itself felt like a gift. Lily was the first to respond. Her small fingers trembled slightly as she signed back, careful and precise, as though testing the ground beneath her feet. You can talk like us. The question carried more than curiosity. It carried years of being overlooked, of wondering whether anyone outside their small circle would ever bother to learn their language. Anna's smile deepened. She nodded and signed, yes. I can. And I'm really glad to meet you. Rose leaned forward now, excitement brightening her face. Her hands moved faster than Lily's, words spilling out in a rush. No one ever talks to us here. Anna felt a tightness in her chest but kept her expression gentle. She signed, I see you. What are your names? Lily signed, tapping her chest. Rose followed, pointing to herself and grinning. Anna repeated their names back to them, perfectly, the way their parents had taught them was important. Both girls laughed silently, a soundless burst of joy that made their shoulders shake. It was such a small thing, being known, but it felt enormous. Victor noticed then. At first, it was only movement in his peripheral vision. He glanced down, expecting to see his daughters fidgeting again. Instead, he saw their faces transformed. Their eyes were alive, focused, their hands dancing through the air in quick, confident motions. He frowned, confused, then turned fully toward them. The men around him fell silent, following his gaze. Anna was kneeling now, still signing, still listening. She wasn't talking about rules or manners or quiet behavior. She was asking questions. She was waiting for answers. Rose signed enthusiastically, we like chocolate cake. With strawberries. And ice cream if it's allowed. Anna laughed softly and signed back, I think that can be arranged. Victor's throat tightened. How are you communicating with them? He asked, his voice breaking the spell. Anna looked up, suddenly aware of how many eyes were on her. She stood, smoothing her apron. I'm using sign language, sir. You know sign language, Victor said slowly. Yes. My brother is deaf. The investors exchanged glances. One of them shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Victor looked back at his daughters. Lily had taken Rose's hands, signing something small and intimate. She understands us. Victor had heard his daughters laugh before, but it had never looked like this. Never so free. He pushed his chair back and stood. The sound scraped against the marble floor, drawing attention from nearby tables. All of you, he said quietly to the men beside him, give us a moment. No one argued. He turned back to Anna. Can you tell me what they're saying? Anna hesitated. If you'd like, sir. Or I can teach you to say it yourself. That stopped him. Teach him. Victor swallowed. Please. Anna turned back to the twins and signed, your father wants to understand too. Lily's eyes flicked to Victor. She studied his face, searching for sincerity. Then she nodded. Anna gently took Victor's hands, positioning his fingers. This is, thank you, she whispered, guiding the motion. Victor's hands felt clumsy, unfamiliar, but he tried. He turned to his daughters and signed the words slowly. Lily gasped. Rose covered her mouth, eyes shining. Daddy said thank you, Rose signed. Victor felt something crack open inside him. The room had grown quiet. Other diners were watching now, curiosity overtaking discretion. No one spoke. Anna stepped back, giving the family space. But Victor wasn't done. He looked around the table, at the men who had talked over his children, at the servers who had passed them by, at the entire room that had treated them like background decoration. My daughters are not broken, he said, his voice steady but heavy. They don't need pity. They need respect. And tonight, this young woman was the only one who offered it. Silence followed, thick and uncomfortable. Victor turned to the manager, who had been hovering nearby. From now on, anyone working this floor will receive basic training in sign language. Anyone who can't be bothered to learn won't be serving my family. The manager nodded quickly. Of course, sir. Victor reached into his wallet, then stopped. He looked at Anna, really looked at her. Money isn't the point, is it? Anna shook her head. No, sir. He smiled faintly. Still, I'd like to do something. He knelt in front of his daughters again and signed, slowly, imperfectly, but with effort, I'm sorry I didn't see you. Lily reached out and touched his cheek. You see us now. Victor exhaled, a sound that was almost a sob. Dessert arrived a few minutes later, chocolate cake crowned with strawberries and 2 scoops of ice cream. Anna placed the plates down and signed, enjoy. The twins beamed up at her. You're our friend, Rose signed. Anna felt tears prick her eyes. I'd like that. As she walked away, the room slowly returned to its low murmur. But something had shifted. People were watching their hands now. Watching their faces. At the table, Lily signed to Rose, we weren't invisible. Rose nodded, lifting her fork. We were just waiting for someone who could hear with their eyes. And for the first time that night, Victor Harrington sat in silence, not as a billionaire, but as a father, listening more carefully than he ever had before.